Welcome to a quick explainer of the Plan to Spend budget method, available on Etsy at the link in the description. A little background, I'm a product manager by trade. I love designing products that solve problems, and I love budgeting. Over the last 15 years or so, I've tried various budgeting products like Mint, Rocket Money, YNAB, but ultimately I always found them too lacking or too expensive for the value provided. I started developing my own trackers in Google Sheets to really take control of my budget. If you have similar goals for your budget, then one of my templates might be a good fit for you. My goals are really twofold. One, it has to be as automated as possible, and two, it has to be easy to learn from and adjust. If a budget isn't largely automated, I'm going to avoid using it and I'll fall out of the habit. If you are someone who likes a hands-on budget where you're writing or typing out your budget for each new month, then this isn't going to be a good fit for you. The second thing for me is I want to know how my actual income and spending is measuring up against that budget plan, and it should be easy to adjust based on those insights. Life happens and unexpected expenses arise. I don't want to have to throw out my whole plan because my cat needed 7 teeth pulled. Similarly, if I'm pacing way over what I expected to spend on food this month, then I want to know that before the end of the month so that I can skip eating out or plan for some cheaper meals. I've never found this type of insight in a budget, one that really helped me make day-to-day, week-to-week decisions, and so that's a big part of what motivated me to make my own. Let's get into the initial setup. This should take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes depending on whether or not you have your recurring expenses information easily on hand. Your categories should be broad enough to cover all the ways in which you plan to spend or save your money, but also narrow enough so that you can track things at a granularity that makes sense for you. So for example, for some people, just tracking food as a bucket might make sense, whereas other people might want to break out groceries from eating out because they have different budgets for those things and want to categorize them maybe differently. Your types are also going to be fairly personal to you though. Some things are pretty obviously a need, like housing and utilities. But then for some people, there's maybe, clothing budget might be something that's either a need or a want, depending on your circumstances. You can change these, you can delete them, you can add more. It's seeded with a couple of common ones just to make it easier, but you can definitely change this list. You can also change it after you've been using the budget by either just updating the label and the corresponding transactions or adding to the list. So you don't need to feel like this needs to be nailed down right away. The next section is your take-home income. Really, this should be all the money that you plan to budget, and that's often going to be a paycheck. You can enter that here with the typical frequencies of every 2 weeks, bi-monthly, monthly. But you could also add in things here like a one-time bonus by giving that an annual frequency, or if you know you're going to need to dip into a certain set of savings for some of your spending goals, you could add that here as well. And then it basically just gives you a summary. This is all of the money that you're going to allocate through this budget. Now you set up your start date. You can, again, change this at any time. So if you want to use this as a rolling budget, you can certainly do that. If you just want to update it once a year, you can certainly do that. This budget is intended to be something that you can use sort of indefinitely as long as you're updating your dates. And then lastly, this is optional, and I won't go into it too much in this video, but if you want to further automate this process by having transactions imported into the sheet, you can use a Google plugin called Budget Sheet. I do not own this or run this, but I am an enthusiastic user. I've used it for several years. It uses industry best practices to connect to your bank accounts through Plaid, and makes it super simple to automate using Google Sheets as your primary budget. They do offer a free trial, and I think it's really a useful thing, but I'm going to skip it for now because it is totally optional. What that then sets you up to do is create your budget. Here it's showing that money that you said you plan to allocate, broken down by needs, wants, and savings using sort of the industry go-to, financial advice go-to for ratios, which is 50% towards needs, 30% towards wants, 20% towards savings or debt reduction. But these are just a helpful benchmark. And certainly everybody's ratio is going to be a little bit different. So you can adjust those here. And there's some tips built into this area to help you know when you should adjust these ratios. So the thing that's going to be most time consuming then is entering your expenses, your goals, the funds that you're creating. This is obviously going to include all of your recurring bills, also just sort of estimates of your recurring expenses, like how much do you spend on groceries a week. It could include a one-time trip that you're planning, expenses that you're planning for that, so you're saving for. And this is also a place where you could add those like unexpected things, like the unexpected vet bill. You would come back and add that here, and it's going to help you then adjust your full budget. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to copy paste in to make this a little faster. The categories from the setup sheet will filter over, and so you want to give each of your expenses one of those categories. This is a helpful way to then go back and you can add categories as you think of them. And here you can see, you know, for me, I don't care that much to monitor gas versus electric. I just look at that whole category as utilities, but you might care more about that. Car insurance is one. Initially, I had a category just for kind of all things transportation, but then I felt like, well, my car insurance is really predictable. My gas or like, you know, calling a Lyft, that's less predictable. And so I wanted to break those out so I could really just monitor the one more easily. Frequency has kind of all your typical options. A lot of mine are going to be monthly. So I might just fill. Groceries is going to be weekly. Moose food is for our cat. All right, and so what I immediately see, I come up here and see is I haven't allocated enough for my needs or my wants. And that seems like a mistake. This is also an annual. It looks better, but I do still need to adjust my needs. It's telling me I need at least 54.4%. You could round up. That's going to mean that you have some left in that category that you haven't really allocated. You can try and match that as close as possible. You know, that's going to leave probably still a little bit of a rounding error, but not much. Now it's showing me, okay, I'm covering my needs, but I've over allocated what I actually have. And so I need to adjust one of these, but I can see my wants that I've identified really don't even come to 30%, so that's probably the easiest place to adjust from, down to 25.6. I'm going to leave some of that savings, so now I've got a full ratio, but I still have some money that is unallocated here, and I'm not worried about it in the needs, but here I have 9,800 surplus left to allocate. So definitely would want to come down here and kind of think about where that's going to go. But that gives you an idea of how you use this to create the budget. The last thing I'm going to cover is transactions. This is the only area that you'll need to add to and maintain on an ongoing basis. All of the visualization and summary tabs pull from this list of data. The trick here is you want to make sure you include all of the debits and transactions necessary to track your budget, as well as all of your income. So this is where you'll track your actual income versus what you plan for, so you can also make adjustments for that. There is an option for internal transfer or ignore if there are line items that really just shouldn't affect your visualizations. This is the thing you can automate through that plugin, but again, that's optional, and this is pretty minimal, I think, maintenance if you do it on a weekly basis or even a monthly basis. Most banks let you export pretty easily, and then you can just copy paste in and do your categorizations. So that's it for the setup and maintenance. That is going to be the same for all plan to spend budgets. Next, I'm going to get into the different visualization and trackers. There are a couple different options on the store for which ones you purchase.